PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we are going to be doing something a little bit different on today's show, as we are going to be breaking down and kind of discussing the fourth line for your Vegas Golden Knights organization. I'm going to be giving you different combinations and maybe some different possibilities that could be happening on the fourth line with your Vegas Golden Knights. And we're going to be doing this on PRConnectionsRadio.com. Now, go to the website, www.prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. We have over a dozen shows on the network. So if you want to go to the website and check out all the amazing content we have on the network, I highly recommend doing so. We also have our social media pages at prconnectionsradio.com. And we also have our social media pages at Vegas Hockey Hub. And if you want to follow your host, I am right down there at Ian J. Rachiele. Now, the reason for this video and the reason why we are talking about the fourth line with your Vegas Golden Knights is because of what has been happening with your Vegas Golden Knights. Now, based off of what we have been seeing as of late, Keegan Kolesar has been a cornerstone. He has been a rock on the fourth line as a right wing for your Vegas Golden Knights organization. Nick Waugh at center, even when he has been promoted to the first line, second line, but for majority of his career as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, Nick Waugh has been your fourth line center. However, William Carrier has always been the question mark. William Carrier, unfortunately, has been the guy that a lot of people have been sitting and wondering about. You have to remember, this is also the same William Carrier that throughout 7 seasons has been your fourth line left wing. But he has been injured. He has missed time. He has not been healthy in the lineup. And because of that, you've had a vast array of players that have been on the fourth line as a left wing. And depending on what happens and everything that's going on, we know that William Carrier moving on, there was a possibility there and everything that was going on. So because of that, because we know about the possibility of William Carrier moving on, because we know that William Carrier, not being there on the fourth line, what we're going to do on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub is we're going to give you not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 different possibilities on the fourth line with your Vegas Golden Knights organization. And this is going to be a really interesting video because option A is the most likely scenario. Option B is a scenario where we have seen happen before. There is some comfortability there. Option C is the worst case scenario. And then option D is the unexpected one and an option that I'm going to be giving to you as something to kind of just think about. Now, before we get to who could be on the left wing side, let's go back to Nick Waugh for just a second, okay? Nick Waugh has been on that center position on the fourth line, and over the past couple of years, Nick Waugh has been vital to the Vegas Golden Knights organization. This is a Nick Waugh who, over the last couple of years, has no doubt about it, been a cornerstone for the Golden Knights organization. We all know it. But how has Nick Waugh performed in the regular season? How has he done on the fourth line with your Vegas Golden Knights organization? Well, Nick Waugh, this season, 2023-2024, he had a breakout year with the Golden Knights. 13 goals, 28 assists for 41 points on the season. And let's remember that he is supposed to be a fourth line center. So even though William Karlsson had 30 goals, even though Jack Eichel is a superstar, you have a guy who scored 40 points for the first time in his career with the Golden Knights organization. It's also the same Nick Waugh who has scored over a dozen goals in back-to-back back-to-back seasons. Okay, it has been 3 consecutive seasons in a row that Nick Waugh has scored over 12 goals as a fourth-line center. He had 15 in 2021, 2022, 14 in 2022, 2023, and then he had 13 this season. And this is also same Nick Waugh who has scored over 30 points in back-to-back seasons. So for a fourth-line center, he is going to be concrete, he is going to be solid, and more importantly, with Nick Waugh, he will be on your fourth line. Okay? Unless something insane happens with William Karlsson, unless something happens with Jack Eichel, where he got injured back in January, February 2024, and they had to promote Nick Waugh, or forbid they have Tomas Hertl go from a center to being a wing like they did at a certain point in 2024. I will not be shocked if Nick Waugh at the beginning of this upcoming year, 2024, 2025, will be your fourth line center. And for having a guy who has scored over a dozen goals in last 3 seasons, you could say he is one of the best fourth line centers in all of the NHL. Now, Keegan Kolesar is another solid player for the Golden Knights organization. Okay, Keegan Kolesar, since being acquired and since being with the Golden Knights organization, has been a vital piece to the Golden Knights organization. This is a guy in Keegan Kolesar who has played over 70 games the past 3 seasons on the fourth line. And yeah, I know everyone talks about his penalty minutes. Everyone talks about the fact that he has had over 40 penalty minutes in each of the last 3 seasons. I get that. But what some people don't bring up enough is that he does score goals for the Golden Knights organization. What some people fail to mention about Keegan Kolesar is that he has scored 7, 8, and 8 over the last 3 years. So for a fourth-line guy to score 20 goals in the last 3 seasons, that is dependable. That's durable right there. You also have to remember, this is the same Keegan Kolesar who has missed 5 or less games almost the last 3 seasons he has been in Vegas. So, overall, for Keegan Kolesar, to see what he has done in Vegas, okay, he is dependable, he is reliable, and on the penalty minutes perspective, he is someone you have to have in the lineup. So, before we get into option 1, I want to set the tone here. Waugh at center. Kolesar at right wing. That's going to be that way for all 4 options. But for option number 1, we're going to go with a young guy. For option 1, we're going to go with a former first-round pick who the Golden Knights are high on for option 1. And Brendan Brisson is someone who has eventually graduated from the AHL and had a cup of coffee this season in 2023, 2024. Now, there's going to be pros and cons to Brendan Brisson being in the starting lineup. Okay? Now, let's get into the cons right away before we get into the pros. Now, the 2 cons against Brendan Brisson will be A, his experience, and B, his lack of defense in Henderson. Now, for the experience perspective of it, this is the same Brendan Brisson who unfortunately has not played enough games in the NHL. This is a guy in Brendan Brisson. He was a former first-round pick with the Golden Knights organization back in 2020, and he has only played over a dozen games in the NHL. Now, he did play respectable in those dozen games he played in the NHL. 2 goals and 8 points with the Golden Knights this season. But for a fourth-line winger to be with Waugh and to be with Kolesar, 2 guys who have been on the same line for essentially 4 seasons now, to replace a William Carrier, who could be going on possibility off-season, he'll be going somewhere else. Are you going to replace him with a young guy who has only had 15 games to his name? That'd be the first con against him. The second con would be the fact that Brennan Bryson has been known for not getting back on defense as quickly. It feels like Brennan Bryson has not yet really transitioned and getting from the forecheck, getting back into the back check, getting from the offensive zone into the defensive zone, being from the offensive, neutral, and defensive. It always seems like Brennan Bryson is slow on that front. And when you're going to replace a guy who had stone hands and someone who is a bruiser, a big body of William Carrier, are you going to replace him with somebody who's only 5'11", barely 180 pounds? Right? And I really look at the Vegas Golden Knights organization and I go, if you're going to have somebody replace William Carrier, all right, this is a possibility here. Are you going to have a former first-round pick? Because normally in the NHL, you put him on the third line, okay? You normally put him as a top 9 forward in your organization, okay? And if you're going to put him on that line, if you're going to have him replace, potentially, we don't know, but potentially replace a Michael Amadio, potentially replace somebody like a Chandler Stevenson, like I said, the offseason free agency and all that. Wouldn't you put him in the middle 6 and not the bottom 6? So with Brennan Bryson, this is the most likely possibility because Brennan Bryson's age, he is now, at this certain age, he is only 23 years old. However, because he is that age, he is going to now be promoted from the AHL. He is going to play essentially his first full season in the NHL in 2024-2025. And the question you have to ask yourself with option 1 is, do you trust Brennan Bryson, who's only had 15 games total? Do you trust him to have good line chemistry with Juan Colazar? Can he replace the production that William Carrier has had over the past 7 seasons? So option 1 is the most likely scenario with your Vegas Golden Knights, and that is having Brennan Bryson take over and replace William Carrier. That's the most likely situation. Now, option 2. Option 2 is something that has happened before. Okay, this is a line that we have actually seen happen in the past, and someone who has been a Swiss Army knife in terms of production, being on line 2, line 3, line 4. This is someone that you can plug and play at almost every single line. He has been a center, he has been a wing, whatever position you need. Brett Howden has been that guy. Now, there is going to be one pro for Brett Howden being on the 4th line, but there is one negative to having him on the 4th line. Now, the pro for Brett Howden will be comfortability. Okay? Familiarity will be the pro with Brett Howden. This is someone who has spent the last couple of seasons being in Vegas. All right? This is someone in Brett Howden who, as a winger, has really grown very comfortable, and someone who's actually kind of gotten used to the role by now of being in the Golden Knights organization. Keep in mind, there's also the same Brett Howden who, over the last couple of seasons, has been giving you around 20 points a year with the Golden Knights. As a matter of fact, he has scored 8 goals and 19 points in this past season, 2023-2024. So for a Brett Howden, to have him be alongside Nick Waugh and have him alongside King Kolazar, it would be about someone who has chemistry on the 4th line before. Because he has played on the 4th line last year. He played on the 4th line this year. This is someone in Brett Howden who has won a Stanley Cup while being a bottom 6 forward in Vegas. And if you want someone to replace William Carrier who actually does have a bit of size to him, the 6'2", 200-pound Brett Howden would be that guy. And considering he is only about 26 years old, this is a Brett Howden who would be a few years younger than William Carrier and would actually gel because of his familiarity with Waugh and Kolesar. The one con to Brett Howden being on the fourth line is that he would be better suited on the middle six. The one con to Brett Howden being on the fourth line is that you actually would need him to be on the middle six, because based off of what we have seen as of late, there is a gaping hole and a vacancy in the middle six on the wing spot, and Brett Howden would fill that. So, in order to have Brett Howden be on the fourth line, you would essentially have to promote somebody else to be on the middle six, and I kind of question if Bruce Cassidy would be comfortable doing that. I think you would have to have a Brennan Brisson be on the middle six. You'd have to have someone from the AHL, maybe a Gregory Diancenko, be on the middle six. You would have to have insert free agent here in the middle six. Because, over the last few years, your middle six has mostly been pretty solid. All right, you have Dorofeyev, you have Carlson, you've had Stevenson, Stone, Hurdle when they acquired him at the trade deadline. Anthony Mantha, he was there when they acquired him at the trade deadline. Michael Amadio's been there. Paul Cotter has been there. So because of the gaping holes this offseason is going to be leaving open, the one negative to having Brett Howden be with Waugh and Kolesar is, despite the line chemistry and despite the familiarity that Waugh, Kolesar, and Howden would have, you think Brett Howden would be on the fourth line considering the need the middle six would have. So for Brett Howden, he is option 2, okay? Because option 1, to repeat it again, would be bringing in a former first-round pick and giving Brendan Brisson a full opportunity, to giving him his first chance to be an everyday player in the NHL. Whereas option 2 is taking someone who has already been in Vegas, someone who already knows the Golden Knights system inside and out, and having him be on the fourth line for the sake of line chemistry. So that's option 1 and option 2. But option 3 is something that not many people would want to do, because it would be a very weak option in option 3. And that would be to make Jonas Roundbeer a fourth-line winger. Now, nothing against Jonas Roundbeer. Jonas Roundbeer, he has been a member of the Golden Knights organization. Jonas Roundbeer, he was drafted by the team. He was someone who has been with the Golden Knights for X amount of years. It's nothing against Jonas Roundbeer. However, if we're going to sit here and analyze the entire Golden Knights organization, okay, if we're really going to sit here and study Jonas Roundbeer, he's no longer a prospect, okay? He is 25 years old. He is someone who has played over 60 games in the NHL. However, he has only scored 3 goals and 10 points in his entire career. Now, he's also not a penalty minutes guy. He's only had 8 in his entire career. And for Jonas Roundbeer, his size, 6'2", 205 pounds. So he would kind of be around the same as Brett Howden, whereas the difference between Howden and Roundbeer is that Brett Howden is more of a defensive-minded, crash the boards, someone who could take the hits, also someone who could be in the penalty box if needed. Roundbeer hasn't really displayed that. So for Jonas Roundbeer to be your fourth-line winger, that would tell me that your top 9 is weakened, and you had to put all your eggs in the top 9, and then you have to have an AHLer turned NHLer in Jonas Roundbeer to be your fourth-line winger. Now, this fourth line has had a bunch of AHLers over the past couple of years. Gage Quinney has been there. Sheldon Rempel has been there. Byron Frazee has been there. You've had guys like Gregory Diatsenko. They've been on the fourth line in the past. You even had some players who have actually spent time being on that fourth line. So you've had players, for example, like Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Tomas Nosek. You've had a bunch of players over the past couple of seasons who have been in that role as a fourth line winger. But let me ask you a question. Over the past 3 seasons, Jonas Roundbeer has played 60 games. Only 10 points. Let's say you give Jonas Roundbeer an entire 82-game season, okay? Let's say if they go with this option and Jonas Roundbeer goes from being a healthy scratch and being a fifth wing with the Golden Knights organization. And then he gets put into the game and he has to play a full season. Would you trust Jonas Roundbeer to have more than 6 goals? Would you trust Jonas Roundbeer to pick up around 20 points in a single season? Because I would trust Brett Howden. I would trust William Carrier. He had done it in the past. Because Nick Waugh is scoring around 40 points a year. I trust him to do that. Keegan Kolesar racks up a bunch of penalty minutes and scores between 7 to 8 goals. I trust him to do that. But for Jonas Roundbeer, the big question mark around him would be he has never played a full 82-game season. He has been a healthy scratch. He has been an AHLer. And if you give him that role and have him be a fourth-line winger, can you sit there and trust Jonas Roundbeer to be an everyday guy? That's the question. Because with Brendan Brisson, you have that first-round pick aura around him, okay? You are going to give Brisson a chance because he's a former first-round pick. And he's only 23 years old. Brett Howden, you're going to give him a chance because of the chemistry, because of what he has done throughout his career. But for Jonas Roundbeer, a massive question mark would be around him. Because at 25 years old, you've only played 60 games in the NHL. So if you being an everyday NHLer, we would have to wait and see if you could be an everyday NHLer. So let's go over the options one more time as we're talking about the fourth line with your Vegas Golden Knights. Option 1, you get a former first-round pick and you give him his first chance to play every day in the NHL. You have Brendan Brisson team up with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar. Option 2 is you have Brett Howden go back to the fourth line, and he plays with a little bit of line chemistry with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar. Option 3 would be the unexpected, and that'd be giving an opportunity to Jonas Roundbeer and have him play with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar and giving him a real chance at 25 years old to be an everyday guy. Now, I've also heard the possibility of having Gregory Diatsenko be on line 4. Okay? Diatsenko had a cup of coffee last year. He played a few games with the Golden Knights on line 4. And I will say him being an AHL All-Star last year, maybe tried to reward him with that performance by having him play in Vegas. However, with Diatsenko, you have to wonder if he is just a career AHLer or if he actually could be a fourth-line winger with the Golden Knights organization. I don't know the answer to that question, unfortunately. I can't sit here and say that I would trust Diatsenko to be a fourth-line winger because he didn't really do that in Florida. He really didn't do that here. So it'd be interesting to see if he could actually pull that off. A few wingers in the AHL that maybe could have some potential. You've had Mason Gerston, who is a fighter. He is a scrappy dude. But at near 30 years old, it seems like he's a career AHLer. So I don't know if he would ever really get a chance to be an NHLer. But if you want a scrappy guy, if if you want someone to kind of perform like a William Carrier, well, this 6'4", 200-pound Mason Gearston would be someone you could put in that area. Because keep in mind, this past season, Mason Gearston had 108 penalty minutes with the Henderson Silver Knights. So if you want to go scrappy, you could go with something like that. But like I said, I don't know if they want to replace Carrier with someone who performs like that. Now, there also is one other option, okay? Before I get into who I would pick, there's one extra option, and that is the hometown option. Gage Quinney is the only Vegas-born player to suit up in the NHL, okay? Gage Quinney, who has been with the Golden Knights since 2018, has played a total of 3 NHL games with the Golden Knights. But for the most part, Gage Quinney has been a career AHLer with the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I only mentioned Gage Quinney because if you want to go the hometown route and you want to give someone who is born in Las Vegas a chance, you theoretically could do so. He is signed until next season. But who I pick, who your host Vegas Hockey Hub picks, is option 4. Option 4, I go with a scrappy guy like Keegan Kolesar. He'll be your right wing. I go with a goal scorer at center in Nick Waugh. And then I go with the energetic and hustle-driven Mason Morelli. Mason Morelli had a cup of coffee with the Golden Knights this past season. Mason Morelli suited up and played in 9 games with the Vegas Golden Knights this past year. And Mason Morelli had 3 goals and 4 points in 9 games this year. Mason Morelli showed the enthusiasm, he showed the heart and the passion that you would want on the 4th line. And Mason Morelli, who has been playing in the AHL since 2018, never got a possibility to play in the NHL until last year. And for the 28-year-old Mason Morelli, he really impressed me. So with your host, Ian Rachiele, my option 4 would be going with hustle and quickness and energy, and I will be going with Mason Morelli to be that guy because he is someone who is quick and he is someone who actually only $700,000 cap hit would be a viable option if you want to add speed and if you want to add quickness to the 4th line. So this is my option, Mason Morelli for the 4th line. Now, going over the 4th line one more time. All right, we're talking about it here on Vegas Hockey Hub. Option 1 is you give a former first-round pick a full-time opportunity. You have Brendan Bryson team up with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar. Option 2, you go with someone who already has line chemistry and comfortability with Waugh and Kolesar, and you have Brett Howden return to the 4th line. Option 3 is you give Jonas Roundbeer his first chance as a full-time member of the Vegas Golden Knights, and you have Jonas Roundbeer team up with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar. And then option 4, which is my option, you have Mason Morelli, who after having a very impressive 9-game performance in 2024, you reward him with that, and you have him replace William Carrier as a 4th-line winger with the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, you can tell me in the comments and everyone watching all around the world, what option would you pick? So option 1, you go with a former first-round pick. Option B, you go with a former 4th-line winger in Brett Howden. Option C, you go with a healthy scratch. You go with an extra man in Jonas Roundbeer. Or option 4, you go with a career AHLer and you give him an opportunity in Mason Morelli. And until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. This is Vegas Hockey Hub. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.